Commander Zether stood on the bridge of the luminous accord and watched Earth grow larger on the viewing screen. Blue Planet looked peaceful and beautiful, just as it had appeared in all the surveillance reports over the past 3 centuries. The Vanlari commander had performed this duty 43 times before approaching a newly developing species to welcome them into the Galactic Council, and each time brought the same mixture of excitement and careful diplomatic preparation. Begin standard approach protocols. Zether ordered their scaled hands moving across the control interface with practiced ease. The communications officer, a young Thorian named Kess, looked up from her station with confusion written across her 6 facial features. "Commander, I'm receiving no response to our hails," Sess said, her voice carrying a note of concern that made Zether's spine ridges flatten against their back. "Try all frequencies," Zether's commanded, moving closer to the communication station. Kess's many fingers danced across her console, cycling through every known communication band that humanity had ever used. "Nothing, Commander," she reported after several long moments. "The planet is completely silent. No radio chatter, no television broadcasts, no internet signals, no military channels. Nothing at all." Zether's felt a cold sensation spreading through their chest. In all their years of service, they had never approached a living world, but made no sound life sign scans. Zether's ordered sharply. The science officer, a methodical Kelrate named Horvath, worked his instruments with multiple appendages. "Commander, this does not make sense," Horvath said slowly, his vocal synthesizer struggling to convey his confusion. "The cities are still powered, lights are functioning, vehicles are present in streets, orbital satellites are operational, but I am reading 0 human life signatures." "0," Zether's repeated, unable to believe what they were hearing. "There should be 8 billion humans on that planet." "There should be, Commander," Horvath confirmed, his many eyes blinking in sequence. "But there are none, not one single human bio signature anywhere on the planet, in orbit or on their moon colony." The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of the ship systems. Every member of the crew stared at the peaceful blue world spinning below them, trying to comprehend what could cause an entire species to simply vanish. "Take us into low orbit," Zephyrus commanded, their voice tight with tension. "I want detailed scans of every major population center, and someone find me an explanation for this." As the luminous accord descended into Earth's atmosphere, the scans revealed a mystery that deepened with every passing moment. The planet looked lived and cities stood intact. Parks showed signs of recent maintenance. Vehicles sat parked along streets as if their drivers had simply stepped away for a moment. But there were no people anywhere. Horvath directed the ship sensors toward New York, then Beijing, then Lagos, then Mumbai. Every major city told the same impossible story: life without the living. "Commander," Cass called out suddenly, "I am picking up something unusual. There are massive structures scattered across every continent. Hundreds of them, possibly thousands." "Show me." Zether's ordered. The main screen flickered and displayed an aerial view of what appeared to be an enormous launch facility. The structure was miles across, with a central platform surrounded by massive support pylons and cooling systems. The ground around it was scorched black, and the metal structures nearby had melted from incredible heat. These are launch sites, Horvath said with certainty, and they have been used very recently within the last few weeks based on the thermal decay patterns. Launch sites for what? Zethers asked, though a terrible suspicion was already forming in their mind. Unknown, Commander Horvath replied, but the scale suggests something massive. Each site could have supported a vessel at least 5 km in length. Zethers' blood ran cold. Humanity was supposed to be barely capable of interplanetary travel. Their largest vessels were small shuttles and basic cargo haulers, so how could they possibly have built ships that size? Prepare a landing party, Zethus ordered. I want boots on the ground. We need to search buildings, homes, and government facilities. Find me some answers. 2 hours later, Zethers walked through an apartment in Tokyo, their suits' boots echoing in the empty rooms. Everything looked normal. A meal sat half-eaten on the kitchen table, and child's toys were scattered across the living room floor. A television was still playing to an audience that no longer existed. There were no signs of struggle, no indication of panic, no bodies, no blood, no evidence of disease or warfare. It was as if every human had simply stopped existing in the same instant. Landing team reported similar findings from dozens of locations around the globe. Empty but intact, abandoned but not destroyed, lifeless but not dead. In a government building in Geneva, they found computers still running, displaying what appeared to be some kind of global alert system. Managed to access the archived messages and brought up the last transmission sent worldwide. Commander, you need to see this, she said. Quiet. Lyses read the message that had been broadcast to every device on Earth in the hours before humanity vanished. Protocol Exodus. All citizens report to nearest ascension point. This is not a drill. Bring only what you can carry. Family units, stay together. Follow all instructions from coordination officers. This is not a drill. Protocol Exodus is now active. The message had been sent in every human language simultaneously, repeated over and over for 6 hours, and then silenced back aboard the Luminous Accord. The senior staff gathered in the conference room while Zethers presented their findings to the Galactic Council via subspace communication. The council members, representing 23 different species from across known space, listened in growing alarm as Zethers described the empty planet and the mysterious launch sites. Could they have destroyed themselves? Asked Council Speaker Vaughn, an elderly Dramath whose tentacles twitched with agitation. There is no evidence of that, Zethers replied firmly. No radiation, no chemical weapons residue, no signs of warfare at all. Then where are they? Demanded another council member. Horvath stepped forward, his multiple arms holding data tablets covered in complex calculations. Honorable council members, I believe I have found something, he said carefully. My team has been analyzing the gravitational distortions around the system, and we have detected anomalies. Very significant anomalies. Explain. Speaker Vaughn commanded. We have found evidence of exactly 500,000 individual warp field signatures, each one powerful enough to move a vessel of dreadnought class or larger, Horvath said, and the conference room erupted in shocked exclamations from both the Luminous Accord crew and the council members watching remotely. That is impossible, someone shouted. Humanity barely discovered basic warp theory. Century ago, nevertheless the evidence is clear, Horvath insisted. Furthermore, these signatures form a trail leading away from Earth, heading toward the galactic rim, toward uncharted space. Zethers felt their throat tighten as the implications became clear. They did not vanish, Zethers said quietly, but their words cut through the chaos. They left. All of them. Every single human boarded ships and departed their home world. But why? Speaker Vorn asked, their voice hollow with confusion. That, Zethers said grimly, is what we must discover. Because a species does not abandon their home world without reason, and a species that can field 500,000 warships is a species we very much need to understand. The Council voted immediately to authorize a pursuit fleet, and Zethers volunteered without hesitation to lead it as the Luminous Accord prepared to follow humanity's trail into the unknown. Zethers stood alone on the observation deck, looking back at Earth. One final time, the planet looked so peaceful, so beautiful, so utterly and completely empty. What did you know? Zephys whispered to the silent world. What scared you enough to make you leave everything behind? The only answer was the cold vacuum of space and the faint gravitational echoes of 500,000 ships that had carried humanity towards some unknown destiny, and Zephys was determined to discover what that destiny was. The pursuit fleet consisted of 12 ships, representing 6 different species of the Galactic Council, all of them following the Luminous Accord as Commander Zethers led them deeper into space along the trail humanity had left behind. For 3 weeks they traveled through known space, following the gravitational signatures that humanity's massive fleet had carved through the fabric of reality like a highway plane toward the unknown. Commander, I am detecting a structure ahead. Guess, announced from her communication station, a voice carrying the weariness that came from long weeks of fruitless searching. Eyes leaned forward in their command chair, studying the sensor display as it resolved into something recognizable, a space station of some kind, though not like any station the Council had ever built. It appears to be constructed from asteroids. Horvath reported his many appendages working multiple sensor arrays simultaneously. The humans have hollowed out several large rocks and connected them with structural frameworks, very crude but surprisingly effective. As the fleet drew closer, they could see the station more clearly. It was a waypoint, a rest stop carved from space debris and held together with human engineering docking ports lined its surface, each one sized for vessels much larger than anything humanity should have possessed. Life signs? Zephys asked, though they already knew the answer. None, Commander Horvath confirmed. The station is abandoned, but it shows signs of recent use, very recent, within the last 2 months, based on the thermal readings from the reactor cores. Zethers led a boarding party across to the station, their magnetic boots clanging against the metal floors as they explored the empty corridors. Everything was labeled in multiple human languages: English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, Hindi, showing that humanity's unified effort had truly involved every nation and culture from their home world. In what appeared to be a central control room, they found computers still running, though most of the data had been wiped. Cleanus managed to recover some fragments: supply manifests, docking schedules, maintenance logs, and the Numbers they contain made Zether's head spin. According to these records, this station processed 847 ships over a period of 9 days. Cass read from her portable terminal. Each ship received fuel supplies and what appears to be some kind of technical upgrades. 847 ships in 9 days, Zethys repeated. Incredulously, that would require coordination and logistics beyond what most council species could manage. There is more, Commander Kess continued, her facial features arranged in an expression of deep confusion. The manifest lists supplies for approximately 16,000 humans per ship. That means this single waypoint serviced over 13 million people. Orvith had been examining the docking mechanisms and called Zethers over to see what he had discovered. Commander, look at these connection ports, he said, gesturing with 3 of his appendages. They are designed for vessels with power outputs consistent with military-grade dreadnoughts, and the fuel they were dispensing contains exotic matter components that humanity should not even know exist, much less know how to synthesize. The implications were staggering. Somehow, in the 2 years since the Council's last survey of Earth, humanity had not only built 500,000 massive warships, but had also leapfrogged centuries of normal technological development. How is this possible? Zephys wondered aloud, but no one had an answer. They found 16 more waypoint stations over the next month, each one telling a similar story of incredible organization and impossible advancement. The trail led them steadily away from civilized space toward the sparse regions of the galactic rim, where stars grew farther apart and the darkness between them deepened. Commander, I am picking up debris ahead, Kess reported one morning during the 6th week of their pursuit. It appears to be wreckage from some kind of engagement. The pursuit fleet slowed as they approached the debris field, and what they found sent chills through every member of every crew. Scattered across thousands of kilometers were the shattered remains of ships, but these were not human ships. The hull fragments were composed of metals that Horvath's instruments could not identify. The molecular structure was unlike anything in the V Council's extensive database of known materials. These ships are not from any species we have encountered, Horvath said slowly, scanning one piece of debris after another. The technology is extraordinary, possibly more advanced than anything the Council possesses. Could they be human ships? Someone asked. Perhaps humanity developed new hull materials. No, Horvath said firmly. The design philosophy is completely alien, nothing like human engineering principles. And look at these weapon scoring patterns. He directed their attention to a large section of hull that had been torn apart by some kind of directed energy weapon. This damage was inflicted by a weapon operating at energy levels I have never seen in practical application, Horvath continued, and the targeting precision suggests automated fire control systems of incredible sophistication. Zethers examined the debris carefully, noting how the ships have been utterly destroyed, not just damaged, but systematically torn apart with overwhelming firepower. These ships attacked someone, Zephys said quietly, and that someone fought back with extreme prejudice. Commander, I have recovered a data core from one of the larger fragments, Cass announced, her voice tight with tension. It is badly damaged but still partially functional. requesting permission to attempt data recovery. Do it, Zus ordered. Immediately. It took Cash 3 days to extract anything useful from the corrupted data core, but when she finally succeeded, she called an immediate meeting of all senior officers from every ship in the pursuit fleet. What you are about to hear was recorded by these unknown aliens approximately 2 years and 4 months ago, Kes said as she activated the playback. The holographic display flickered to life, showing what appeared to be a bridge or command center of some kind. The layout was alien, but the function was unmistakable. Creatures that looked like a cross between insects and machines operated various stations, their movements precise and coordinated. One of them was speaking in a language that the translation computers struggled to process, but eventually rendered into understandable words. 5th Scouting Group reporting the 3rd planet in system designated SAW 437 contains abundant biological resources, estimated biomass of 8 billion units of varying genetic complexity. Technological development is primitive, estimated at Council classification. Level 2 minimal defensive capabilities detected. Recommend immediate inclusion in Harvester fleet. Primary target list. The recording continued with technical details about Earth's orbit, atmospheric composition, and resource distribution. It was a targeting report prepared by scouts for something they called the Harvester fleet. Council classification level 2. Zeus interrupted. That is the rating we gave humanity, barely capable of interplanetary travel. Yes, Commander. Kes confirmed grimly. These aliens were scouting Earth, cataloging it as a resource to be harvested. The recording continued, forwarding all data to fleet command via quantum link. Estimated fleet arrival at SAW 437 in 24 standard cycles, beginning systematic survey of neighboring systems for additional targets. And then the recording ended abruptly in static and the screech of tearing metal. That is where the data core was damaged, Cess explained, but I found a time stamp. This recording was made 26 months ago, 2 months before humanity evacuated Earth. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Humanity knew, Oveth said slowly. They knew these aliens were coming. Somehow they intercepted these scouts, recovered their data, and learned about this harvester of fleet. And they decided to run, added one of the other ship commanders, a cow-eyed named Jessup. No, Zether said, their voice hard and certain. They did not run. If they wanted to run, they would have scattered to 1,000 different systems, made themselves hard to find, but they did not scatter. They stayed together. 500,000 ships traveling in a unified fleet toward a single destination. Then, what are they doing? Jessup eyes looked at the frozen image of the alien scout ship on the display, at the cold mechanical efficiency with which it had cataloged Earth as a target for extermination. They are going to fight, Zephyr said. Quietly, they learned that something was coming to destroy them and everyone in the galaxy, and they decided to meet it head-on. That is insane, Jessup protested. They should have warned the Council. We could have prepared a defense, could we? Zis challenged. Look at this debris. These scouts were more advanced than us, and they were destroyed utterly. Humanity has weapons we cannot match, technology we do not understand. They made a choice, and perhaps it was The only choice that made sense. We need to find them, Cash said urgently. If they are going to fight this harvester fleet, they will need all the help they can get. Agreed, Zethus said, moving back to their command chair. All ships, maximum speed. We follow humanity's trail to whatever end awaits, and we pray to whatever gods we believe in that we are not too late. The pursuit fleet pushed their engines beyond recommended safety limits, racing through the darkness toward a destination they could not see but now understood with terrible clarity. Humanity had not vanished overnight. They had gone to war. The pursuit fleet emerged from their latest warp jump into a region of space so remote that no council survey had ever reached it. They were at the very edge of the galaxy where stars were sparse and the void between them stretched for light years. Commander, sensors are detecting massive energy signatures ahead, Cass reported, her voice carrying equal parts excitement and dread. Multiple contacts, thousands of them, no, hundreds of thousands on screen, Zethus commanded, and what appeared on the viewing display made every being on every bridge fall silent. Humanity's fleet was arrayed before him in a formation so vast that it defied comprehension. 500,000 ships arranged in a perfect sphere, each vessel exactly 5 kilometers in length, bristling with weapons and shields that glowed with barely contained power. The sphere formation was hundreds of millions of kilometers across, centered on a dying red dwarf star that cast everything in bloody light. They built a fortress, Horvath whispered in awe. Not a fleet, a fortress made of ships. Each human vessel was positioned with mathematical precision, their weapons pointed outward into empty space, creating overlapping fields of fire that would allow them to support each other in combat. Zus had spent decades studying military tactics and fleet formations, but they had never seen anything like this. It was defensive doctrine taken to an extreme that bordered on paranoia or genius. Possibly both. What are they defending against? Jessup asked from his ship, his voice crackling over the communication channel. Perhaps we should ask them, Zephys replied. Open all frequencies. Broadcast on every channel humanity has ever used. Let them know we are here. Cash worked their console, sending out hails in dozens of human languages, but for 3 days there was no response. Human fleet remained silent and still, their weapons tracking the council ships but not firing, weighing with the patience of stones. On the 4th day, just as Zethers was beginning to fear that humanity had somehow perished within those ships, leaving behind an automated defense grid, a response finally came. Through the face that appeared on the screen was human, a woman with dark skin and eyes that looked far older than her physical age suggested. She wore a military uniform that Zethys did not recognize, covered with insignia and decorations. And when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of someone who had not slept properly in months. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Defense Initiative, commanding officer of the Exodus Fleet, she said formally. You are entering a restricted military zone. For your own safety, I strongly recommend that you turn back immediately. Admiral Chun. I am Commander Z3 of the Galactic Council. Survey ship, Luminous Accord. Zephys replied quickly. We have traveled for weeks to find you. We need to understand what happened. Why did humanity abandon Earth? Chen's face remained impassive. but something flickered in her eyes. Grief perhaps, or regret, Commander Zeus. I appreciate your concern, but we do not have time for lengthy explanations, Chun said. What you need to know is that a threat is coming, a threat to not just humanity, but to every living species in this galaxy, and we are here to stop it. The Harvester fleet, Zephyrus said, and Chun's carefully controlled expression cracked just slightly with surprise. You know about them? Chun asked. We found the remains of their scout ships along your trail, Zethers explained. We recovered their data cores. We know they were targeting Earth, but Admiral, if this threat is real, the Galactic Council should be coordinating defense. You did not need to face this alone. Chen laughed, but it was a bitter sound without humor. Commander, let me tell you a story, she said, her voice hardening. 2 years ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected anomalous signals from beyond the galactic rim. Signals that should not have been there. Our scientists, including myself, spent weeks trying to decrypt them. She paused and her eyes grew distant. Remembering what we found was a warning beacon left by a species that no longer exists, a species that had been consumed by something they called the Harvesters. Chun continued. The beacon contained everything: historical records, tactical data, technical specifications. It was a gift from the dead to the living, a final attempt to help someone, anyone, stand against what they could not. What did the beacon tell you? Orv asked, leaning forward intently. It told us that the Harvesters have been cleansing this galaxy of sentient life for millions of years, Chun said flatly. Every few thousand years they sweep through a region of space, harvesting every biological resource, every mineral deposit, everything of value, and then they move on to the next region. They have destroyed thousands of civilizations, maybe tens of thousands. The species that left the beacon was just one of many. Zephyrus felt cold dread spreading through their body, but they forced themselves to ask the next question. Why did you not warn the council? Because the council would have debated. Chun snapped, her composure breaking. For the first time, you would have formed committees, held hearings, questioned the data, argued about jurisdiction and treaty obligations, and while you talked, the Harvesters would have continued their approach. We calculated that by the time the council acknowledged the threat and organized a response, it would be too late, so you decided to act alone. Ziz said quietly. We decided to do what was necessary. Chun corrected. The beacon contained advanced technology gifts from dozens of extinct species, each one hoping that someday someone would be able to use their knowledge to succeed where they failed. We took that technology. We absorbed it as fast as we could, and we built this fleet. She gestured around her, encompassing the massive defensive sphere, every human government, every corporation, every scientific institution, every individual person. We all came together with one purpose: survival. Chun continued. We built production facilities on every moon, every asteroid, every marginally habitable rock in our solar system. We worked around the clock for 2 years straight. And when the ships were ready, we evacuated everyone, all 8 billion of us, because we knew Earth would be targeted. And we wanted to draw the Harvesters away from our home world. You use yourselves as bait, Oveth said in horror. We used ourselves as soldiers. Chun corrected firmly. Every person on These ships knows why we are here. Every person volunteered. We are here because someone has to stand against the harvesters, and we decided it would be us. When will they arrive? Zephyrus asked, though they dreaded the answer, and glanced at something off-screen, checking a display. 72 hours, she said quietly. Long-range sensors detected their fleet. 4 days ago. They are massive, Commander. Millions of ships, each one the size of a small moon. They are everything the beacon warned us about and more. Then we will stand with you, Zephyrus declared. The Council fleet may be small, but we will not abandon you to face this alone. No, Chun said firmly. Commander Zeus, I appreciate the sentiment, but you cannot help here. Your 12 ships would be destroyed in the first minutes of combat. The best thing you can do is leave now. Return to the Council and warn them about what is coming. Warn them about what? Zephyrus challenged. That humanity sacrificed itself to buy the galaxy time, that an entire species died to give the rest of us a chance to prepare. I will not run while you stand and fight. Chun's expression softened slightly, and for a moment she looked less like a hardened military commander and more like a tired woman carrying an impossible burden. Commander, if you want to help and witness what happens here, she said quietly, record everything, send it back to the Council in real time, if you can make sure that if we fail, at least someone will know we tried. Make sure Earth is not forgotten as just an empty world, but as the home of people who chose to fight rather than surrender. Zephyrus felt their throat tighten with emotion. And if you succeed, Zephyrus asked, then we will have given the galaxy a future. Chen replied simply. Either way, the Council needs to know what we faced. They need to understand that there are threats out here that do not negotiate, that do not surrender, that cannot be reasoned with. The galaxy needs to learn how to fight, Commander, because the harvesters might not be the only threat lurking in the darkness. Before Zephyrus could respond, alarms began blaring on Chun's bridge. They are here early, Chun said, her voice suddenly sharp and professional. Commander Zephyrus, I am initiating emergency protocols. Your navigation systems are being locked to automatic retreat coordinates. You will be forced to jump to safety when the battle begins. You cannot do that, Zephyrus protested. I just did, Chan replied, and there was steel in her voice. Now you wanted to help, then survive. Record everything, tell our story, and remember that humanity did not run, did not hide, did not surrender. We stood and we fought, and we did it for everyone. Communication channel cut off abruptly, and Zephyrus stood alone on the bridge, staring at the massive human fleet array before them. In the distance, space itself seemed to darken as something vast and terrible approached from the void between stars. The harvesters were coming, and humanity was ready to meet them. The harvesters emerged from the darkness like a living nightmare made manifest. They came not as a fleet, but as a swarm, millions upon millions of vessels that blotted out the stars themselves. Each harvester, their ship, was enormous, dwarfing even the largest human dreadnoughts, and they moved with perfect coordination that spoke of a hive mind directing every action. Zephyrus stood frozen on the bridge of the luminous accord, watching in horror as the swarm approached, their numbers so vast that the ship's computers could not generate an accurate count, estimate at least 10 million hostile contacts. Horvath reported, his voice shaking despite his attempts to remain Professional, possibly 15 million sensors are being overwhelmed by the sheer density of their formation. We need to help them. Cass shouted, her many facial features twisted in anguish. We cannot just watch, we have no choice, Zethus said bitterly. Admiral Chun locked our navigation. We will be forced to jump away as soon as the battle begins. But even as they spoke, something unexpected happened. The other 11 ships of the Council Pursuit Fleet began moving forward, breaking formation and heading toward the human defensive sphere. All ships, what are you doing? Zethers demanded over the fleet-wide channel. We are choosing to stay, Commander Jessup replied from his ship. Admiral Chun locked her navigation. Commander Zethys, but she did not lock ours. We are choosing to witness this, to stand with humanity, even if all we can do is watch. One by one, the other commanders echoed Jessup's decision, and Zethers felt something swell in their chest, pride mixed with terror, respect mixed with grief. The human fleet remained silent and still as the harvesters' swarm approached, waiting with discipline that spoke of extensive training and preparation. Then when the harvesters crossed an invisible line in space, Admiral Chun's voice rang out across every human channel. All ships, humanity endures fire. 500,000 human warships opened fire simultaneously, and the darkness of space was torn apart by lights. At this had seen fleet combat before. They had studied historical battles and observed training exercises, but nothing had prepared them for the violence that erupted before their eyes. Human weapons, energy beams, missiles, kinetic rounds, and things could not even identify, lashed out at the harvester swarm with fury that seemed to exceed the laws of physics. The harvesters returned fire, their weapons cutting through space with terrible precision, but the human defensive sphere held, each ship supporting its neighbors, overlapping shields creating a barrier that absorbed and dispersed the incoming fire. They are holding them, Orvath whispered in disbelief. They are actually holding them back. But the harvesters kept coming, pushing forward with mindless determination, and slowly, inevitably, human ships began to. Desus watched in anguish as a human dreadnought took concentrated fire from a dozen harvester vessels. Its shields failed, its hull breached, and it exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the dying star behind the fleet. One ship lost, Cass reported quietly, tears streaming down her face, reading 160 human life signatures lost. With it, regard everything, Zethers commanded, their voice thick with emotion. Every death, every sacrifice. Humanity asked us to bear witness, and by all the gods of all our species, we will do exactly that. Hours passed then. Days, and the battle raged without pause. The human fleet fought with a ferocity that bordered on madness, their ships charging into impossible situations, sacrificing themselves to destroy larger harvester vessels. But it was not mindless aggression. Zethers began to see the pattern in their tactics, the careful coordination, the mathematical precision of their targeting. They are not just fighting, Horv said in awe. They are executing a strategy. Look at how they concentrate fire. They're not trying to damage the harvesters. They are trying to destroy them completely. One at a time. He was right. Humanity was not spreading their fire across multiple targets, but focusing everything on single harvester ships. until they were utterly annihilated. Then moving to the next target, it was brutally efficient, but the cost was staggering. By the end of the first day, humanity had lost 50,000 ships, 8 million people dead, but they had destroyed over 200,000 harvester vessels. By the end of the second day, the human count had dropped to 300,000 ships, but the harvester swarm was visibly thinning, their perfect coordination beginning to falter as their numbers decreased. The council observers watched in silence, recording everything, bearing witness to sacrifice on a scale that defied comprehension. On the third day of battle, with the human fleet reduced to fewer than 200,000 ships, Admiral Chun's face appeared on every council ship's viewing screen. She looked like death itself. Her uniform was torn and stained, her face was haggarded with exhaustion, and her eyes carried the weight of millions of dead. But her voice was steady when she spoke. "Commanders, us, commanders of the Council fleet, I want to thank you for staying, for witnessing what we have done here," she said. "But now you must go, you must leave, and you must tell the galaxy what happened here." "Admiral, you can still win this," Zeeves protested. "Your fleet is holding, the harvesters are breaking." "Yes," Chan agreed, "but not before we are broken as well. What comes next will be difficult to watch. I will not force you to see it." "What do you mean?" Zephas asked, fear creeping into their voice. "I mean that we are going to finish this," Chin said simply. "All remaining ships have been ordered to execute final protocol. We are going to charge directly into the heart of their swarm, and we are going to keep fighting until either they are all dead or we are." "That is suicide," Jessup shouted from his ship. "That is victory," Chun corrected gently. "Commander, we came here knowing we would not return home. We came here to buy the galaxy time, to show the harvesters that sentient life can fight back, and we have done that. We have hurt them badly, killed millions of their ships, but to truly stop them, to ensure they cannot regenerate and return, we must destroy every single one." She paused, and for just a moment her professional mask slipped, revealing the exhausted, terrified woman beneath. "Tell them we tried," she said quietly. "Tell them that humanity stood here at the edge of the galaxy, and we fought with everything we had. Tell them that Earth was not just an empty world, but a cradle that birthed people willing to die for strangers. And please, please, remember us." Before anyone could respond, Chun reached forward and activated something on her console. Immediately, the luminous Accord's navigation systems came to life, overriding manual control and initiating emergency warp procedures. "No!" Zeethers screamed, fighting the controls, but it was useless. Chun had programmed their ship to escape, had taken even that choice away from them. The last thing Zeether saw before the warp field engaged was Admiral Chun's ship, the indomitable spirit leading the charge as every remaining human vessel abandoned their defensive positions and drove forward into the heart of the harvester swarm. The human ships formed a spear of light, punching through the harvester formation, their weapons blazing, their shields overloading, their crews fighting and dying as they pushed deeper and deeper into the enemy mass. Then the warp field engaged and reality twisted, pulling the council ships away to safety, tearing them away from the battle, away from humanity's final stand. As the luminous Accord tumbled through warp space, Zeethers collapsed into their command chair, tears streaming down their face. They had witnessed courage beyond measure, sacrifice beyond understanding. And they had been forced to abandon those who had shown them what it truly meant to fight for something greater than oneself. Recorded all Zus said hoarsely to Cass, record every moment, every ship, every death. Humanity asked us to remember them, and by all the gods, we will tell their story. Until the stars themselves grow cold, we will make certain that the galaxy never forgets what happened here at the edge of forever. And in the darkness of warp space, racing away from the battle they could no longer witness, the Council fleet carried with them the memory of 500,000 ships ascending from Earth in the hope that somewhere, somehow, humanity's sacrifice would not be vain. 3 months passed in a blur of activity as the Galactic Council mobilized in response to the recordings that Commander Ethys had brought back from humanity's last stand. Footage had been broadcast across every council world, shown to billions of sentient beings who watched in silent awe as humanity fought and died at the edge of the galaxy. Some species wept, others raged at their own council representatives for not acting sooner, and still others demanded that a memorial fleet be sent to recover whatever remained. It took the council 3 months to assemble a force large enough and properly equipped to return to the battle side. 127 ships representing every member species, carrying scientists, military personnel, diplomats, and memorial specialists. They brought with them a monument stone carved from earth marble, a massive block of white stone inscribed with the names of every human ship that had departed Earth, ready to mark the grave site of an entire species. Commander Zethers led the memorial fleet, their scaled hands gripping their command chair as they approached the coordinates where they had last seen humanity fighting. Commander, we are approaching the battle site, Cass reported, her voice heavy with grief that had not diminished in 3 months. All ships reduce speed, Zethers ordered. We approached with respect. We are entering a graveyard. The memorial fleet dropped out of warp and entered normal space, and what they saw made every being on every ship gasp in shock. The battlefield stretched before them in all directions, millions upon millions of destroyed ships floating in the void like a mechanical reef. Harvester, vessels, and human ships alike drifted as wreckage, torn apart by weapons fire, shattered by impacts, broken by the violence of the battle that had raged here. Beginning scanning operations, Orveth announced, his voice subdued. This will take some time. The debris field extends for hundreds of millions of kilom. They had expected to find only wreckage, to catalog the dead and mark the site with honor. What they found instead was impossible. Commander, Cass shouted suddenly, her many facial features stretched wide in shock. I am detecting human life signs. What? Zethus bolted upright in their chair. That is impossible. No one could have survived this. Multiple life signs, Commander, Cass confirmed, her appendages dancing across her console. Hundreds of thousands of them, weak signals, emergency life support levels, but definitely human and definitely alive. All ships begin search and rescue operations immediately. Zephys commanded, find every survivor, bring them aboard, medical teams on standby. The memorial fleet spread out across the debris field, their sensors sweeping for life signs, their rescue shuttles launching by the dozens. What they discovered as they searched left them stunned. Scattered throughout the graveyard were 1,847 human ships, damaged almost beyond recognition, but somehow still functional, their crews alive but barely. Saw the indomitable spirit. Admiral Chun's flagship was among them, its hull so scarred and battered that it looked more like a piece of abstract art than a warship. When Zeus hailed the ship, they waited with breath held, praying for a response. After long minutes, the communication channel crackled to life, and Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared on the screen. She looked ancient. Her hair had gone white. Her face was deeply lined, her eyes sunken with exhaustion. But she was alive, and when she saw Zethers, she smiled. Commander Zethers, she said, her voice narrow and weak. I did not expect to see you again, Admiral Chen. Zethers replied, and their voice broke with emotion. You are alive. You survived. How? Chen laughed, but it was a sound of pure disbelief rather than humor. We got lucky, Commander, she said. Very, very lucky. Or perhaps the harvesters got unlucky. Either way, were you still here? What happened after we left? Zephyrus asked urgently. Chun's expression grew distant, remembering horrors that would haunt her for whatever remained of her life. We charged, she said simply. Every ship, every person. We drove straight into the heart of their swarm. We had learned something from the ancient beacon, something the dead civilizations had discovered too late. The harvesters are finite. Horvath interrupted. What do you mean? I mean they do not reproduce, do not build new ships, do not replace their losses, Chan explained. Every harvester vessel, that swarm, was millions of years old, maintained and repaired over countless harvests. They are powerful, they are terrifying, but they are limited, and we realized that if we could destroy every single one of them, we could end the threat permanently. She paused, taking a shaky breath. So that is what we did, she continued. We fought for 7 more days after you left. 7 days of constant combat, no rest, no pause. We tore through their formation, destroying everything we could reach, and they fought back. They killed so many of us. Her voice cracked and tears began streaming down her scarred face. But in the end we won, she said quietly. We destroyed them all, every single harvester ship. We ended a threat that had existed for millions of years, and the cost was she could not continue, a grief overwhelming her. This understood of the 8 billion humans who had left Earth. Fewer than 300,000 had survived, an entire species reduced to a remnant, their civilization shattered, their future uncertain. The Council offers you everything, Zethers said gently. New worlds, technology, resources to rebuild whatever humanity needs. We will provide. You have saved the galaxy, and the galaxy will help you heal. Chun shook her head slowly. We appreciate the offer, Commander, truly we do, she said, but humanity will rebuild itself. We will accept help, but we will do things our own way, at our own pace. We started this journey together, all 8 billion of us, and those of us who remain will finish it together. What will you do now? Zis asked. Now Chen looked around at the graveyard surrounding her ship, at the debris field that contained both the remains of humanity's sacrifice and the proof of their victory. Now we rest, we mourn our dead, we remember those who fell, and then we begin again. Over the following weeks, the Council fleet helped stabilized the surviving human ships, and provided medical care to the exhausted crews. During that time, the Council convened an emergency session and made a decision that was unprecedented in galactic history. When the session concluded, Zethers returned to Admiral Chun with news. The Council has voted unanimously. Zethers announced formally. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and privileges. Furthermore, you are being offered custodianship of galactic defense. The Council wants humanity to lead the effort to ensure nothing like the Harvesters ever threatens the galaxy again. Chime looked stunned, clearly not having expected such an offer. Commander, we are barely 300,000 people, she protested. How can we defend an entire galaxy? You will not be alone, Zethus assured her. Council will provide resources, ships, personnel, but we need humanity's knowledge, your tactics, your willingness to do what is necessary. You proved at this battlefield that humanity understands what it means to fight for survival. The galaxy needs that understanding. Chun was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. We accept, she said, but on one condition. We train your people as we were trained. We share everything we learned from the ancient beacon and from this battle. The galaxy needs to know how to fight, because there might be other threats out there, other dangers we have not yet discovered. Agreed, Zethus said. Immediately, the surviving human ships did not return to Earth immediately. Instead, they began their new mission, traveling to Council worlds, establishing training facilities, sharing their hard-won knowledge. New ships were built, combining human tactical doctrine with Council resources and technology. The 1,847 ships that survived the battle were repaired and became the core of what would be known as the Galactic Defense Fleet, crewed by both humans and other species united in purpose. 5 years after the battle, a single human ship finally returned to Earth orbit. The planet had changed in humanity's absence. Nature had begun reclaiming the abandoned cities, forests growing through streets, oceans cleansing themselves of pollution, wildlife returning the places they had long fled. But humanity had left one structure standing, maintained by automated systems as a monument to what they had done. It was Launch Site Prime, the first facility from which the Exodus fleet had departed, standing alone in what had once been the Mojave Desert. Admiral Sarah Chun, now older still but carrying herself with renewed strength, stood before the monument as crews erected a massive stone walker. In it were inscribed the words she had spoken to Commander Zethers before the final charge, preserved now as humanity's promise to the galaxy. We left so others could live, we fought so others would remember, we died so the galaxy might have a tomorrow. This is what humanity means, this is who we are, and below it, carved by Chun's own hand, a new line. And we survived, and we will never let this happen again. Chun stood before the monument as the sun set over the empty desert, thinking about the 8 billion people who had boarded those ships, about the millions who had died in the darkness at galaxy's edge, about the remnant who had endured, she thought, about Earth abandoned but not forgotten, waiting patiently for the day when humanity might return to reclaim it. And she thought about the future, about the species humanity had saved, about the young people of a dozen different worlds who were even now training to defend the galaxy, learning From